Hi, I'm Dana, and as someone who shares a lot of content online about my own personal experiences of being autistic, I obviously come across the radar, I suppose, of a lot of other autistic people, and a lot of people comment on my stuff, and not that many. I don't want to be like, loads of people comment on my stuff, but I get a fair amount of comments, positive and negative, as everyone does. Otis is having a lot of fun right now. You'll just have to deal with that. I'm not going to stop him from playing. But yeah, I've got an influx, I would say, of comments lately on TikTok as I gain more followers there, of people who don't relate to me and don't have the same experience as me. And that's fine. I don't expect everyone to find me relatable. I don't expect everyone to have the same experiences as me. What isn't okay is them telling me that I must not be autistic and similar things to that because they don't relate to me and because we don't have the same experiences. And I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding within the autistic community because people don't understand how another autistic person can be so different from them. And I just want to go into some of the sort of the reasons why and some of the things behind that, and especially when I get the comments of like, autism's a superpower, but autistic people can do anything. You can do anything. You're just like shutting yourself down and not giving yourself a chance. You need to try more. I've gotten a lot of that, and it's especially going to address that, as well as the other things we've stated in this intro that is now over. Let's do the video. So first off is one that should be the most obvious but doesn't always feel like it is, which is that as much as it's not, autism also is a spectrum. There are a lot of different types of autistic people. There's a lot of different types of autistic traits that come into play to create an autistic person. We're all very, very different a lot of the time. Like, even with my friends who I relate to on like an extreme personal level and we have a lot of things in common, we still have a lot of differences too. And along with those differences come different abilities. There are some things that as an autistic person I can't do. You telling me if I just try a bit harder or just do this or just put in this accommodation does not magically mean that I can do it. And it also doesn't mean that I'm saying autistic people can't do this thing. And I'm also not saying it for lack of trying. I have tried, I've put the effort in, that's how I know that I can't do it. Otherwise I would have done it when I put all of the trial and effort in, you know? Like, as much as I don't like calling it a spectrum anymore because it makes the neurotypicals think that everybody's a bit autistic, it also is a very, very vast and wide spectrum where a lot of people that are autistic and are on the spectrum just have vastly different things that we're able to do and vastly different traits. And I think that it's largely forgotten about because a lot of the people that are talking about autism are people like me. We can mask, we can, come across in a very specific way that doesn't necessarily show all of the issues and all of the ways that we are autistic. But as you get into people that have higher support needs, it's more difficult for them to make the content a lot of the time, so we don't see as many of those people, even though they're very much there and very valid. And I do think that there's also massive issues with the way that people act as though people with lower support needs like myself are talking over those people, when I'm very much... I don't feel like I'm talking over anyone. I'm just talking and people can choose to listen or not, Like, everything is so based on my experience only that I don't understand why people get so upset that I'm different to them, or that I have different abilities and capabilities, when it is a spectrum and we're all different, and that's just where I fall in my own little thing, and I do prefer the like photographic metaphor, I suppose, that someone came up with, of it being like the mixing board and everyone's got like different levels. I do prefer to use that than like the term spectrum as a rule, but also I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So the next one that I think plays into this is privilege and support, and it's one of those things that I personally get a little bit nervous talking about because I'm working class and I don't have support, I don't really have privilege. Like, I do to a point, obviously everybody has some privileges as just people who we are, but I'm not someone who has any sort of financial help in any way, like I don't have family that I can fall back on. I live alone. If something goes wrong, I'm the only person that deals with my life, The only support that I have is from friends who are in very similar positions to me. I've repeatedly gone to GPs and been like, please, I need some help and support. I'm an autistic person and life's really hard. And there isn't any support for me. Nothing is offered. There is no support. So especially when it comes to things like working and going into education and actually trying to like further my place in life, or whatever you want to call it, I don't have the support and privilege to do it in the way that a lot of other people do. And I'll still get these very lengthy comments of like, well, I can get a job because I do this, this and this. And I'm like, I wouldn't be able to get a job in an area that I enjoy without going back into education. I can't go back into education when I have no support and I'm barely dealing with life as it is, never mind adding something else into the equation. You know, and especially like watching other people's content, and like most autistic people that are my age and sort of like the people that I relate most to often have a lot of support from their parents, which is great and they deserve it and it's valid and everything. But I just don't have it. Like, there's a lot of support, and I do see that support as a privilege that people have that is available to other autistic people that isn't to me, just based on like where I am in life. And that's fine, that's the way of the world, that's how it is. But I feel like there should be an understanding, and not necessarily like empathy to that, but an understanding at least, you know? The next point does apply less to me because I do try to like take some degree of an actual like worldview and not exclusively just my experience. But I have also experienced this to a point, and that's comorbidities. A lot of autistic people are not just autistic. A lot of us will struggle with other chronic illnesses, chronic disabilities, all sorts of disabilities alongside being autistic. A lot of mental health issues. Like, I have a huge amount of anxiety, and I have no idea if it just comes from being autistic, if it's just anxiety, if it's part of like CPTSD or something similar, because I have had a lot of trauma in my life because I'm not privileged and supported. You know, I feel like it's quite rare, or at least like in the circles that I speak to and everything, I don't really know people that are just autistic, you know? Pretty much every autistic person I know has something else that goes on as well. So sure, there's some things that if I was just autistic, yeah, I'd be able to do, but adding on that I'm extremely anxious and really struggle with like anything outside of my routine and the norm, and it makes me just shut down and freeze. Suddenly there's a lot of things that are more closed off to me than otherwise would be if I was just autistic. And similarly with a lot of my friends, they have like physical disabilities and stuff going on that makes life just so much more difficult and that isn't accommodated for. And people just completely ignore that when being like, well, you're just autistic, because most of us aren't just autistic. And the final thing that I want to bring up that especially relates to the people that want to act like I'm just using autism as an excuse, and it, like, not even just me specifically, but like autistic people just use being autistic as an excuse to not have to do things we don't want to do, or because we don't feel like it at the time, or because we're lazy. And that's the fact that being autistic is a disability. Like, that's not something I've decided. It is a registered disability. And you know, you come across plenty of autistic people that are like, well, I'm not disabled, and like, you are. You are, like, you are. That is a disability. You are registered as having a disability if you're diagnosed autistic. That is a fact. You might not feel like a disabled person if you're doing well, but you do have a disability. And quite frankly, if you're doing well, it's probably because your disability is being accommodated to and you're being supported. And that's great. That's how we should all feel. But a lot of us don't. And it's really not okay, in my opinion, to just forget about those of us that don't have that. For a lot of us, it is a very disabling thing to live with. You know, like, I've dropped out of education. I have completely screwed up most of my life so far, quite frankly, because I'm autistic, and it's all really fucking hard. I didn't have the support or anything around me because it's a disability that was not being accommodated to for the vast majority of my life. But it's like for most disabilities, they are misunderstood most of the time. I don't think that it's often that they're overlooked or not thought about, they're just misunderstood. Like, having friends who have physical disabilities, we often have people that react really weirdly or negatively when they get up out of their wheelchairs, and it's like most people, I don't know if it's most, but a lot of people are ambulatory wheelchair users and can walk a little bit until they need the chair again, you know? And I feel like autism is often a very similar thing in like a completely different way, in that like there's a lot of things that I can do briefly and then it's going to go to absolute shit. You know, I'm going to hit autistic burnout. I'm not going to be able to do the thing for a prolonged period of time. But the fact that I can do it for that one glimmering little moment makes people think that I should just be able to do it all the time. And I can't. I'm disabled. Like, it's registered as a disability for a reason, you know? And it really frustrates me that so many people that are in more positive situations and easier situations, like, I'm sorry, but a lot of people are, that's the way the world is. You know, they really forget that and think that everybody should like be on their level when we're just not. It's not the way people work. Like, I just think that one of the really big downsides that comes with a lot more people realising that they are autistic is that there's just so much more misunderstanding and miscommunication around being autistic and what it means to be autistic. And I feel like it's something that is starting to really impact the autistic community. And, you know, it might be because I've gained more followers, but I didn't used to get comments that were so like vitriolically like hateful, you know, and especially from other autistic people. I feel like 2 years ago when I started this, people had more of an understanding that we're all different and we experience things in different ways, that I feel like less and less people are having that understanding. And it's one of those things where I don't want to tell anybody how to think and feel about it, but I do kind of want to prompt people to think about it, you know, form your own opinions. Don't just decide I'm right and say what I say or whatever. But I think these are things that people could do with thinking more about, even if they come to a completely different conclusion than I have. I think a lot of problems in the world would be solved, frankly, if people just thought a little bit more. And I know that I overthink, but like, you don't have to do it to the same level as me. Just a little bit of thought, I think, would help a lot of things. But yeah, that's the end of this video. And as always, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Please don't be mean, but I'd love to hear what you think, what your opinions are on this like whole topic. I know it's been a bit of a rambly one, but I feel like I have made my point and you should hopefully get like the vibe of what I'm going for. Lord knows. But I am making videos 3 times a week at the minute if you want to hear more of my thoughts and rambles and opinions by subscribing. And you can also follow me over on TikTok where I post daily, Instagram where I post sometimes, and Twitter where I post about TV shows like once a month when I bother to actually go on it. If you want to donate to me monetarily, you can become a Patreon member and pay me every month. There's various tiers and payment types. You don't have to. And I also have a Ko-fi account set up where you can donate me a one-time sum, and that'll all be linked down in the little box below. So yeah, whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I'll see you again in a couple of days.